In this presentation, we will discuss how to prepare for a graduate or professional school interview and what to expect during the interview. An interview for graduate school can take place in person, via Skype, or over the phone. If you are invited to interview in person, always make your best effort to attend. Not attending, even if you have a good reason, may signal to the interviewers that you are not serious about your interest in the program. You most likely will interview with faculty from the program you're applying to, and possibly current students. You also may do a group interview where you're interviewing at the same time as other candidates. Some programs may require you to do multiple rounds of interviews before being accepted into the program. For the phone interview, you may feel that there is less pressure since you are not in front of the interviewer, but it will be harder to build rapport. In person, you can tell if the interviewer is disengaged by their eyes roaming to other parts of the room, or if they give you an expression that suggests they are bored and not paying attention. You will not have this advantage over the phone, so your excitement and enthusiasm should drive the energy of the conversation to keep them engaged. Standing up periodically will help you maintain that energy during the call. Have your resume and any notes in front of you. An advantage of not being seen is that you can look down at your paper and refer to your notes as needed. Now, this does not mean you should read word for word from your notes. That will be obvious and make you sound too robotic over the phone. Simply refer to your resume and notes as needed. It is also a good idea to write down questions that you are asked in case you are asked those questions again in the next step of the interviewing process. You can use those questions to practice from and refine your responses. Be comfortable with silent pauses. Although you may feel awkward or uneasy when there is silence, talking to avoid it tends to make most people go off on tangents or babble unconsciously. The person you are speaking with may be taking notes or gathering their thoughts about your response. Silence does not necessarily mean that there is something wrong, so allow the silent pauses. Never use speakerphone. It's a dialogue, and you want to be sure you can keep up with the conversation and hear the person you are speaking with clearly. Lastly, never put the person you are speaking with on hold. Be mindful that this is time that they have taken out of their day to spend on the phone with you, and you are expected to be prepared with no reason to pause the conversation. Next, the video and Robo interviews. For these interviews, you should treat them as if you were meeting the interviewer in person. You will either be seen in a live video or in a recorded video, so your facial expressions, eye contact, and appearance are all important. This means you should look directly in the camera when speaking during the interview instead of focusing on the image of yourself or the interviewer on the screen. To prepare, you should set the camera and audio settings to make sure the camera is positioned properly to fit the top half of your body. You should also check that the area behind you is not distracting and that the sound is working and set to a decent volume. If you're using a live video system such as Skype, make sure your Skype name is listed as just your first and last name. As you are trying to leave a good impression, titling your account by a nickname is not appropriate. You also want to make it easy for the employer to find you in the system. Since these interviews require a computer, be sure to close your browser and exit out of all applications you may have open. You can easily get distracted by a notification or an email that pops up on your screen during the interview, and you don't want to lose your focus. Here are some additional tips. Be sure to choose a location where there is strong internet or phone connection to avoid dropped or failed calls. Again, you want to demonstrate that you are prepared for the interview, and choosing a location conducive for a remote interview is a huge part of your preparation. Turn off all electronic devices except for the one you may be using for the interview. This includes a television, game system, tablets, or other devices that can distract you. If you have pets and decide to hold the interview while at home, be sure your pet is in a separate room and cannot be heard or seen. Finally, be ready for your interview 10 minutes before the scheduled time. It is not uncommon for an interview to begin a few minutes early. If you're invited for an in-person interview, you could have an individual, group, or panel interview. An individual interview includes you and one interviewer. A group interview involves multiple candidates that are interviewed simultaneously. And a panel interview involves multiple interviewers with one candidate. Remember, these interviews can potentially follow the initial screening and will last for at least 30 minutes to 1 or more hours, depending on the number of people you are interviewing with. Know where you are going for the interview. Drive to the location prior to the day of the interview to plan for timing to leave home, to get an idea for the route that you will take to the site and where you will park. Make sure you have a list of items that you will need for that day and always dress professionally. In general, you should always be respectful to everyone you meet. This includes other candidates if they are present or other members of the organization that you may meet but not interview with. Greet everyone you meet with a firm handshake and properly introduce yourself by clearly stating who you are. Make sure you arrive 15 minutes early for the interview and walk in the door 10 minutes prior to the start time. This will allow you time to park, get water, or do a final check in the mirror. For the on-site interview, it is essential to bring what you need to feel prepared. Even though you have already submitted your resume to the employer, bring extra copies, as you can also offer one to anyone who may need a copy. Also bring a Padfolio or a folder, a notepad and a pen, so you can take notes or write down any questions you may have during the interview. It's best to leave your cell phone and any other personal items that may be a distraction to you in your car. When it comes time for an on-site interview, check with your person of contact from the program on how to dress. Typically, business casual attire is appropriate for graduate school interviews. For tips on business casual dress, view the details above. Minimum cologne or perfume, clean-cut facial hair. Hair should be out of your face. Dress pants or knee-length dress or skirt. Button-down or polo shirt. Sweater or cardigan. A suit jacket is not required, and a tie is not required. Khaki or dress pants, but no jeans. Your belt should match your shoe color. Your shoes should be black or brown. You should have black, brown, or nude flats. Wear neutral colored socks or stockings. Have minimal and classic jewelry. And have natural colored makeup and nail polish. When preparing for the interview, do your research on the university and also the program you're applying for. In this research, consider what faculty members you could see yourself working with, and identify an article, project, or book chapter they have recently published and familiarize yourself with it. Also, review your own interests and goals and evaluate how they line up with those of the faculty and program. Before going to the interview, prepare questions that you will ask the interviewers. These questions should be specific to the school and program you're applying for. Some questions you could ask include, what type of companies do graduates of this program work for? What is a job placement rate from this program? Are there graduate assistantships, scholarships, or fellowships available? Are there opportunities to publish articles or present papers? How long do most students take to graduate from this program? You also may want to inquire about required practicum or internship experiences. You should already have some knowledge if there is a requirement for the program, but your interview would be a good time to ask follow-up questions to gain more details about the required experience. During your interview, remember what your goals are. You want to convey your interest in the program, your motivation for applying, and your professionalism. You also want to use the interview to gather the information you need to decide if it is a right graduate program for you. Some common questions that are asked in graduate school interviews include, tell us about yourself. Why did you select this program? What sets you apart from other candidates? How would your professors describe you? What has prepared you for graduate level coursework? And what do you believe your greatest challenge will be if you are accepted into this program? You also will want to be prepared to answer questions that are specific to the program you are interviewing for. Here are some questions that are specific to different graduate programs for you to consider. For business, tell me about a time you demonstrated leadership. What did you learn from it? For counseling, how do you deal with stress? For law school, what kind of law are you most interested in practicing? For medical school, tell me about an ethical dilemma you faced. And for occupational therapy and physical therapy, why OT and not PT, and vice versa if you're interviewing for a PT program. For more program-specific questions, do a Google search or make an appointment with a career advisor. When interviewing multiple applicants for a graduate program, the interviewers usually ask the same set of questions to all applicants to assess their fit, skills, and motivation. The thing that sets you apart from other applicants is your personal stories that demonstrate your fit, skills, and motivation. Using stories of your experiences is the best way to engage the interviewers so they will remember who you are after the interview. You should know what stories you would like to share that will highlight your skills that relate to the graduate program for what you are interviewing for. Keep in mind you want to trigger the interviewer's imagination, so be specific and add the detail that your stories deserve. When interviewing, you may be asked behavioral-based questions. These questions are based on the idea that previous performance and behavior will predict future performance and behavior. For example, instead of asking you a question like, "How do you organize your research?" the behavioral-based version of the question would be, "Tell me about how you organized your most recent research project." This type of question is asking you to tell a specific story. To do this, you should use the STAR technique. This stands for situation, task, action, and result. First, describe the situation to the interviewer. This allows you to set up the story. Be sure to provide enough detail so the interviewer can imagine what you are describing, and try to spend just a short amount of time doing this. To answer the question, "Tell me about how you organized your most recent research project," you should start with what type of research you were doing, the setting you were in, and any other details that you feel would be useful to the interviewer. Remember, the interviewer does not need every detail, but just the ones that will help give them a broad picture of the situation. Next, explain your task in the situation. What was your responsibility? Tell them about your role or assignment that you were charged with. To answer the question previously posed, you should focus on telling the interviewer what was your exact role in the research. Were you responsible for collecting data, finding participants for the study, or some other role? You will want to be specific about your role and responsibilities, while also being concise in your answer. To talk about the action you took to complete that task, use skill-based language here and articulate ways you may have used your analytical or problem-solving skills. If you were in charge of finding participants for the study, you can talk about how you found those participants. This is where you'll want to give specific details, such as your strategy in finding participants that were a right fit for the study. Since the question is asking about your organizational skills, talk about your actions that highlight this skill. And finally, explain the results of your work. What were your contributions towards improving the research project? What were your successes? Mention any quantified results. For example, talk about how many participants you found and how you ensured that the participants had the information they needed in order to participate in the study. Focus on how your work in finding the research participants contributed to the bigger picture and help the study run smoothly. It is best to present the most concrete and measurable evidence of your work. If you weren't necessarily successful in your work, consider what you learned that you could use when you were in that situation again. You should always end your answer with a positive outlook. So speaking about your takeaways and what you have learned will tell the interviewer that you are motivated by challenges and that you look for ways to improve your work in the future. So to answer the question, tell me about how you organized your most recent research project, your answer may look something like this. During my senior year of college, I was a research assistant in an exercise science lab at John Carroll University, where we were looking at the effects of sport drinks on collegiate athletes' running performance. One of the tasks I was responsible for was to find the athletes to participate in this study. In order to do this, I first found a list on JCU's website with all the varsity teams on campus. I then contacted the coaches and provided them with information on the study and my contact information to pass on to their athletes. In order to ensure I did not miss any teams, I kept a spreadsheet of what coaches I had already reached out to, the date I contacted them, and if I received a response back from them. This helped to ensure I did not contact the same team twice and let me know who I needed to follow up with if I did not receive a response. We needed at least 80 student athletes to participate in the study to ensure that we had statistical significance. Through contacting coaches and using my own social network, I was able to recruit 109 athletes for the study. Having the extra athletes gave our research more statistical power and ensured we would have enough data even if we had to exclude some of the participants due to them not meeting all of the requirements or dropping out before the completion of the study. Through doing this research, I have learned how staying organized can help the team stay on track to successfully complete the research they are doing. The lengthier answers should be between 20 seconds to 2 minutes long. You don't want to lose your audience by talking too long or lose their interest by not providing enough detail. The time you spend on answering a question depends on what you are asked. This brings up the most important tip. Make sure you answer the question. This is especially important if you are asked a question with multiple parts. You need to respond to every part of that question. If you are unsure about what was asked, don't hesitate to ask the interviewer to repeat or clarify the question that they posed. You want to be sure you are providing an appropriate response. To practice your interviewing skills, you can schedule a mock interview with a career advisor who will give you feedback and helpful tips on how to improve your interviewing skills, or utilize the Big Interview program to practice, record your answers, and share them to receive feedback. You can access Big Interview by visiting biginterview.com and using your JCU email to create a free student account. How you finish matters. You want to close the interview strong. Reiterate your interest in the program and why you feel you are a great fit. Show appreciation and say thank you to those who took the time to interview you. Decisions are made fast, so send a thank you note by email within 24 hours. If you met and interviewed with multiple people, send one note to everyone with the appropriate greeting. Otherwise, send one thank you note to the person you met and interviewed with. Here's an example of a thank you note. Dear Dr. Doe, thank you for taking the time to meet with me yesterday to discuss my qualifications for the Clinical Mental Health Counseling Program at John Carroll University. I enjoyed the tour of the university and the chance to learn more about the program. I am excited about the opportunity to work in the field by doing a practicum and internship experience while working on my degree. Thank you again for taking the time to interview me, and I look forward to speaking with you again soon. Should you need any additional information, please feel free to contact me by email or by phone. End the note with, sincerely, and enter your full name. The subject of your email should say thank you with your first and last name. Make sure you address the person you are emailing with the appropriate article, Mr., Miss, or Doctor, and their last name. In your note, mention something specific that you remember from the interview. This tells the employer how intentional and interested you are in the program. Your email and phone number should match the information from your application. And always end your thank you note with a salutation and your full name. For more interviewing tips, please watch the interview research and preparation video. For help with preparing for graduate school interviews, set up an appointment today through Handshake or reach us by phone or email. In terms of additional career advice, remember, we are here to help you make career-related decisions, develop your skills to achieve your goals, and connect you to opportunities. Please come visit us in our new location in the Master and Tony Student Success Commons located in the Griselli Library.